I'm Grace.
And I'm Piper.
And this is the Unveiling Podcast with Grace and Piper,
where we tackle controversial topics through holistic, biblical, and unfiltered conversation.
Let's dive into the episode.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, everybody.
It is spooky season.
Happy Halloween. My favorite time.
It is your favorite time of the month. I've come to really enjoy Halloween. It's been something that I've really enjoyed, and because we didn't celebrate it when I was a kid, we didn't really. No, we dressed up but we didn't go trick or treating.
Okay.
And we would dress up in costume and go see a movie with family friends of ours, and then we'd go out to eat and then go back to one of our houses and bought candy. So that's what we did. So we quote unquote didn't celebrate it, but we did. We just didn't do trick or treating. We were never allowed to do any sort of spooky or weird thing like that. That was never part of our growing up. It wasn't till I was older that I started. That sounds weird to say, exploring spooky things, but no, just enjoying spooky season. Yeah. And I don't know why I'm not obsessed with it like some people are. I'm not like, literally my whole personality changes when Halloween comes around, that sort of thing. I do enjoy it because I love the fall. Yeah. I think I love the coziness of it. I love how people come together around Halloween. It's just another holiday, which is what I love. And I think I do enjoy because everybody does have darker parts of their head that they want to work through and process through. And I think there are some scary things out there, movies or books, or even things like Harry Potter, that allow you to kind of process that darker side in a safe way. Yeah. A way that's not calling on spirits or allowing pagan things super into your dark mind and heart.
Yeah.
But they still allow you to figure out how to... here's why I love it. I love it because my favorite thing and a big part of my personality is finding the light in dark spaces. So I think there's a lot of darkness that people allow in Halloween. So what I want to do is pull... Because the Lord overshadows everything dark. So bringing the Lord and bringing light into dark places and allowing those dark things that people deal with, it's stepping into that with them, or stepping into the headspace of like movies or TV shows, that sort of thing, and seeing where the Lord redeems those things, where the Lord can bring the light, where the Lord's light can shine in those things. Yeah, anyway, I'm rambling, but
I'm gonna so we're going through Spiritual Gifts book, and we were talking about how apostleship is one of your giftings, and I was like, if that's not the most possible mindset of like mission field, here's the light, let's go towards it. I love that.
I don't know why I'm like that, but I am. I know. My poor parents, it stresses them out.
Really?
Yeah. No, they're very much anti anything that has a hint of darkness or something in it. They're very much anti, but
I get that. Darkness is scary.
Yeah. 100%. And there are a lot of people who do not know how to do it well. And I'm not saying that I do it well, but I'm saying that
you don't have a fear of it.
I don't have a fear of it, and I do have the light of Christ, and I know that that's not going to be shaken. It's never been shaken by things like spooky things, that sort of thing. If anything, the Lord has used things like The Haunting of Hill House to explore more about relationships and trauma and emotions and family.
Well, and you and Keegan are definitely people who and Steven's this way too. I don't know if I'm this way as much. But just finding meaning in a lot of movies, and I think these days horror films are taken a lot more seriously. So stuff like Haunting of Hill House and all of that, it's there is psychological meaning and stuff behind it. And so although, yeah, it's dark, it's like, well, life is dark sometimes. And that kind of darkness is sometimes relatable. And it's like, oh, people understand, you know? And that can be a light of, like, helping you process things. And it's weird to say that about something like a horror film, but, like, sometimes it'd be like that.
I think I'm such a positive person. I'm typically a joyful person, a positive person.
Yeah.
I love beauty and art and light. I think sometimes I never felt like I had the freedom or anybody to explore any dark things with or anything that I was struggling with, that sort of thing, because it's like, no, you don't struggle with that, like, because you're happy and you're Piper. And so I was like, okay, I don't have a safe place to explore this, I guess. And so it wasn't until I was an adult that darker movies or TV shows or things like that helped me to kind of, it helped open that door to realize that those things were there in the first place, and for me to not shove them down and not feel like I wasn't allowed to have struggles, and for the Lord to really step into those places. So there are movies and TV shows that I watch that are dark, that were really therapeutic, and I don't watch them anymore because I don't need to, because they did their job. There's no reason to keep reliving the same trauma over and over again.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway.
That makes sense.
Spooky season, though. You love spooky season, too.
I do. Now, has our Enneagram episode come out yet? Yes. No. Next week.
No, yeah.
Next time. We have an Enneagram episode coming out next time.
Woohoo.
November 10th. And we talked about, I'm an Enneagram 9 now, but I used to be a 4. 100%. And so I have always felt safe and comfortable in melancholy and negativity. And I think Halloween definitely adds on to that, of like, spooky things and horror films and movies about, even Tim Burton. It's very melancholy movies with a little bit of humor in it, and that's my thing.
I love Tim Burton. I really do.
Where I'm happy. That's my happy space. Melancholy does not make me sad. And so yeah, I've always loved spooky season. For a while, my sister was like not into Halloween, and she's 8 years older than me, so she didn't grow up with trick-or-treating or anything like that. But then when I was a kid, my uncle was more loose on trick-or-treating, and then like we did trunk-or-treating sometimes because we had a neighborhood church that we did stuff at, and so we did trunk-or-treating, and then I think I hit like, I don't know, 9, 10, 11, one of those ages. And then my mom was like, you know what, we're going to go trick-or-treating with your uncle. And so I got to make my own costume, which I love making costumes. It's just my favorite.
We did go all out in costumes when I was little. My mom made some of the dopest costumes.
Oh, I bet. I believe it.
Oh, they were amazing.
So 11-year-old me got to make her own very first costume. And I took like a black blanket and made my own school costume. And my first ever like trick-or-treating costume was a Hogwarts student.
That's adorable.
I made my own, like, paper, like, tie, and I used, like, clothing pins for, like, my cape, and I was just living for it. And then I used to actually whittle and paint my own wands.
Really?
Yeah, I would just take...
Oh, that's really cool.
Wooden sticks and do it. I need to do that again, because I think Ruth would like that.
That would be fun.
But, I love that. I loved making my own wands and making costumes. And then when I was 12, I got to make my own Mad Hatter costume. And then 13, my best friend that I grew up with was allowed to trick-or-treat finally, and so she knew how to sew. So I was Alice in Wonderland. We made me a full-on Alice in Wonderland costume. That's awesome. She was the Queen of Hearts, and we got to do that.
That's adorable.
We should share costume photos if we have any.
We 100% should.
I'll pull mine out.
I was a Christmas present one year.
Oh.
Like I wore a box.
Oh.
Like I wore a box.
Literally.
No, like I wore. No, it's not funny. I was like 14. I was like 14, and I wore a bow, and I wore a box. I chose this. I thought it was funny.
What?
I did. And it was funny. I thought it was funny. This was my decision and choice. I was 100%.
14-year-old Piper.
Like a pioneer girl one year.
Okay.
I think I was Rapunzel one year, and that was actually awesome.
Oh, that's fun.
I was gonna say I made my costume, but it looked amazing. I'll have to find those old pictures because those are great. We had some great costumes over the years. I'm completely drawing a blank on other costumes I did. I think I was a rock star one year. Yeah, we did lots of different costumes.
Nice. Yeah, the only rule we had was like no witch costumes or anything, which was always a bummer because that's always what I wanted to be, witches and skeletons. And then we just obviously, because once you hit like 14, 15, it's like, okay, you're not allowed to trick or treat anymore. So I think I stopped at 15. And then once Steve and I got married, I was like, well, you're doing costumes with me, buddy. So second Halloween together, we already had a kid. So we did Jurassic Park. We were,
Nice.
We were the couple. I can't remember their name now.
But the people from Jurassic Park.
Like the two main.
That's awesome. Yep.
And Ruth was a raptor.
Of course she was.
She was the cutest raptor ever. And then last year we just did, my grandfather was a baseball Pirates fan, so he had gotten me a Pirates costume, and Ruth fit in it last year.
That's adorable.
It was cute. She had a little baseball hat and
I'm like drawing a blank.
Pittsburgh Pirates.
So Ruth, okay, when she was a raptor, she was like fresh. She was barely born. She was like a few weeks old.
She was a few weeks old.
Okay, I was losing my mind. I was like, wait. I was like, Ruth is 2.
Yeah. Yes. So my mother-in-law's actual birthday is the day before Halloween. So the year Ruth was born, I think Halloween was on a Sunday. So we celebrate her birthday, and she had trick-or-treaters. So we were like, well, we'll just get dressed here and trick-or-treat or pass out candy with you. Awesome. So we hung out with her, and yeah, we did that. And then last year we have a jack-o'-lantern festival in our town, and so we realized the jack-o'-lantern festival, thousands of people come to this, and it's dead on Halloween.
Is it really dead
Almost
on Halloween?
no line.
That's really fun, actually.
So you can just walk in, barely anyone's walking with you. Whereas if you go on like a normal night, like you can barely move because everyone's stopping and looking. And when you have a stroller, it's just annoying.
Yeah.
So we do that on Halloween now. And yeah, we just dressed up as the Pittsburgh Pirates. Nothing crazy. And then this year we're still ruminating on some costume ideas. But I love Halloween. It's my happy time. Steven knows almost every night we have to watch a Halloween movie. It's a little bit different now because we go to bed early. But on the weekends, we have a podcast right now where we're reviewing Halloween movies. So yeah, it's my happy time. I enjoy it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We've really enjoyed it this year. We've been rewatching the Harry Potters.
Nice.
And watching Midnight Mass, which is
I've been wanting
Keegan's
to watch that.
He's never seen it. So I watched it. Yeah. I watched it last year and he's never seen it.
I don't know if I had Steven watch that with me.
It's real good.
But yeah. Yeah, I love watching all the spooky movies, and Tim Burton has been a favorite of mine for as long as I can remember. And then Coraline.
Oh yeah,
Coraline
we have to watch
season.
Coraline. It is Coraline.
Coraline. Season. I read the Coraline book every October, and then I pick a Stephen King book every October.
Oh, fun!
So I'm reading Secret Window, which is that Johnny Depp movie.
That's your favorite. Yep.
Yeah, the book is set in October. I didn't realize.
Oh well, that's fun.
And I was like, this is amazing. But yeah, it's been interesting because like we still enjoy Halloween, but now that we have a kid, Halloween is very different. It's just...
You used to be a big horror fan, and now you're like, nah.
Yeah, we watched all the supernatural horror films. We did The Conjuring. Steven really loves Insidious. We watched.
See that I don't frick with.
We watched Sinister.
Me. Oh my.
The Terrifier. I could list all the movies.
Girl, that's why you got demons in your house. No, I'm teasing.
You never know. Yeah, and then we had a kid, and Steven and Keegan were doing some Halloween stuff on their channel, and I watched a horror film with Steven. It was Candyman. And after that one, I was like, we're done with, like, entity, spiritual horror films in our house, I think. Because we had already started having spiritual stuff, like, in our house. That was when it was actually in the townhome I started feeling the demon.
That can't be a coincidence.
No.
That's crazy.
He just came with us. And we'll get into that. But, Yeah, and at first I thought it was like, okay, well, we have a kid. Like, we just don't need to think about these things. Like, that's just, the world's terrifying enough. You're trying to protect your child. And then we had, our setup was like, if you go up the stairs, first room you go into, or if you went into it, it was the nursery. And I just kept having these dreams of someone intruding in our home. But it was someone who I couldn't fight off. Which now I'm realizing that was the demon.
Yeah.
Just got chills.
Ah.
But yeah, so I was just like, we just don't need it in our home. I was like, you can watch your movies you need to watch for your podcast, but I was like, I'm just not going to watch them with you.
Yeah.
Haven't felt we were celebrating a friend's birthday Friday night, and we talked about a horror film, but then as we were going through the horror film options, I was like, let's watch an old horror film, because I was like...
The ones that actually aren't spooky.
Yeah. Even the one we picked Carnival of Souls. It's a pretty cheesy horror film, but I was like, I didn't like the ghost. He was very obviously a human, and he just had dark makeup around his eyes, but I was like...
It's kind of freaked you out.
No.
Yeah, no.
I was like, I'm good. We don't need to watch horror films anymore. Yeah, so if we want to get into that... So...
We don't have to, but if
I mean, we can. I mean, we're here to talk about Halloween, Supernatural.
We very much believe that these things are real, obviously. My dad prayed over our first home for us before we moved in, that nothing is welcome. Keegan and I are both very aware if we wake up and feel some sort of darkness or scariness or something, we don't mess with that
stuff.
You really don't. Now, we're not going to freak out our kids. If our kid comes to us and says, hey, something's scary in my room, we're not going to be like, well, it's a demon and it's going to come in.
Yeah, don't speak it over.
We got to get it out. But what we're also not going to do is be like, oh, so silly.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as spooky stuff.
Even had a friend whose child just randomly gets scared, and he's a baby. And I was like, you pray over that boy. Like but you also don't pray directly against the demons. You just pray for protection over his body, his heart, his mind, whatever is scaring him. But you definitely don't directly speak that to your children.
When I was a kid, my parents always told me, it stuck with me ever since I was a little kid, when I was scared of like the dark or something. They would say, well, if you're ever scared of the dark or feeling afraid, all you need to do is say the name of Jesus, and then nothing can stay
It is so
in
true.
the house. I am a 24-year-old woman, and I still just say the name of Jesus in my house if I feel any sort of fear.
Yeah.
It has stuck with me. I'm pretty convinced that we had some spiritual stuff going on in our house there for a while when I was growing up, but I moved into the basement, and they made it my whole room. It was awesome. But that's when I started really sleeping poorly, was when I moved down there, which is odd because you're in the basement, so it's dark and quiet, so nothing really wakes you up. But I started sleeping really poorly down there, and I could have sworn that there was stuff like in the darkness that I couldn't see. I was so terrified. And so I would pray every single night. I would sit there in the dark and I would just pray. I would pray over the house. I would pray over myself. I would pray over my family. And whatever was down there, I'm pretty sure the Lord used my prayers to cast it out. he cast it out because I asked him to. And so nothing spooky down there anymore. But for a while, I'm pretty convinced that there were some spirits down there from past families or whatever it was, just lurking around, or whatever spiritual stuff we were going through as a family.
You just
crept
never
in.
know. Like, we bought a 1923 home in the west end of town, and no matter what city you live in, if you're in the west end, it's like, there's stuff down there.
There's something out there.
And even, I'm serious, like, it feels like on a weekly basis we see crazy spiritual things down in the West End. My God. We have people in the West End who just walk through the neighborhoods all day just praying. And so, we knew. We were like, there could be some things in this house. And luckily we found out, like, the family who lived there most of the time since the house was built, healthy family. They all loved each other. The lady who owned the home was still alive. She just went to a home. Her kids took care of her. Like, seems like nothing bad. But at the same time, I was like, you never know. So we had this wonderful man, Kevin, who was part of our old church. He prayed over the house. We have friends who are neighbors. They prayed over the house. And my mom and dad prayed over the house. So we had plenty of prayers over the protection, home. Yeah. But in the townhome we lived in before, I was starting to feel weird vibes. And then just like the dreams of someone intruding in our home, but we had no way of protecting ourselves from it. And at the time we were dealing with some creepy stuff from a family member or ex-family member, just kind of harassing the family. And so I thought maybe it was that. And I had felt spiritual things in the first house we moved to in Louisville, but our family was going through some stuff, and my sister was dealing with some spiritual stuff, and I was having repetitive dreams about her. And as a teenager, I had a spiritual attack, and then this demon who just kind of hung out in my room a couple times while I was going through some hard stuff. So it's like, I've dealt with the vibe, and you just kind of know, like, you just feel it, and it's like, okay, something feels off. It's probably a demon. It's probably something spiritual at least. But it was really weird. In the townhome, I didn't ever think, was I dealing with something spiritual? It was just like an unease in the home. But we were also going through a lot, and so I already wasn't sleeping. I just had a baby. So there was so much going on, I just don't think my mind was clear to think, okay, is this something I should be praying about? Is this spiritual related? Should I be checking in on my husband? Like, but then when you move to the West End, the first thing almost everyone told us was like, you're going to deal with some stuff down here. The Lord is very present, but what comes with presence from the Lord is Satan trying to come at you too. And so we have felt that since the day we moved in. We had like a good couple of first weeks in the home, and then I was automatically waking up at the exact same time every night. What was it? It's been a minute now. I think I woke up at 2 a.m. every night and couldn't fall back asleep until 4. And as we all know, some people call that the witching hour. Christian terms, it's actually the praying hour. So depending on which way you look at it. But that always freaked me out because I always thought, oh, it's the witching hour. Like, this is where spirits do come in and bother you. And then I would get up to go to the bathroom every time I woke up. And there was just always this dark presence in our stairway. Or sometimes before I even opened my eyes, I had a face in my head. And he was looking directly at me or over our bed. And I've had that before, just like that paranoia. But it was starting to feel a little too real because it would almost be like I could actually feel him breathing on me. And so I was just like,
Well, you're describing it to me and I can almost see it and I'm like literally like shivering.
Yeah.
Like,
sorry.
No, you're fine.
I don't want to creep people out. But yeah, it was just a very real presence in our home. And I don't know why I didn't tell Steven for a long time about it. Yeah.
The enemy will do that too. He'll try to cut you off from the people you need to be confiding to and talking to, making you think, oh, it's all in my head. I'm being ridiculous. People are going to think I'm stupid or crazy.
You're freaked out because you're in the West End now and you're in your own home. And,
right.
you know, it's a new area. You don't know what's going to happen. Like, yeah, it was just all excuses in my head of like, I'm just being paranoid. And sometimes my paranoia, Steven makes fun of it. And so I was also just like, I'm not going to bother Steven because he's just going to tease me.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely the enemy putting dumb thoughts in my head of like, you don't need to talk about it. This is no big deal. Where it started to bother me was like, Ruth was starting to get up and do some weird stuff. And she would start, and I don't know, like, I don't know if there's a spirit in her room, but she would get up around the same time I would get up, and she would either be completely panicked, like something happened, or she would be laughing and talking to herself. And, you know, that's creepy in general when your kid gets up in the middle of the night, but laughing at the corner and talking to yourself as a 1.5-year-old, it's like, no.
Oh my gosh.
So I was starting to like talk about that to Steven, and then he was having Bible times on the porch every morning. And he started getting this image of him coming to me and asking if someone had a demon in them and was possessed. And I was confirming like, absolutely. And so he came to me with that because he was like, I'm having it like every time I pray, like in the mornings. And so he was like, I think it's an actual image from the Lord. And there were two people that popped into my head. We knew a couple who was going through some really dark stuff and they were separating. And so I was like, it could be like one of them. They could just be struggling. But then I thought of myself, because I was like, I'm waking up with this fear and this demon over our bed, or something telling me not to look in Ruth's room or in the stairway or in the guest room. And I'm scared to go to the bathroom. I feel like I have to have the door all the way shut or something's going to come through. And so I paused and I had brought up the other couple, but then I looked at him and I was like, it could be us. And so I explained the situation to him, and then he was like, that's really interesting. And so he just told me, he was like, hey, if you ever like wake up again, like I want you to tell me, because I want to be able to pray over that. So we started praying together every night. And I still would have the feeling, but then there was one night, this was, I don't know, it was over the summer. Because I think we told you guys almost immediately after it happened. I felt at peace for the first time, and for the first time in like 6 months, I slept through the night, basically. Or I woke up at 2 still, I think, but I didn't feel the demon in the house. And so I was like, okay, prayer's working. Like something's being dealt with. But little did I know that my husband woke up when I got up, and he immediately felt the presence of the demon. And that was the first time he felt the presence. He hadn't felt it this whole time.
And he also wasn't raised in this like kind of spiritual like realm. Yes. So the fact that he felt it and was dealing with it was a big deal for him.
Yes. Stephen, they didn't really talk about spirits or demons. Spiritual gifts was not taught. And so this part of Christianity is a whole new realm for Stephen in the last couple of years. So, and I've always been very spiritually sensitive. Like, I can walk into a house and know if there's spirits in the house. Like, it's on my radar. So yeah, him feeling that was a huge deal. And so he started praying over me while I was in the bathroom. And I guess I got out of the bathroom, went back to bed. But as he was praying over me, he was praying out loud, and suddenly he couldn't speak anymore. And I don't remember, I think he said it felt like a pressure on his chest, like someone had jumped on his chest, but he couldn't really move. And he was trying to shake my shoulder and wake me up to let me know that he couldn't speak. And God had just told him, like, I'm taking care of Grace, like, you handle this demon. And so he had 2 or 3 rounds of prayer, just like trying to fight off this demon. And then it finally came to him, like, God gives us the power to cast off demons. And so he basically, I don't remember if he could talk at this point or if this was still in his head, but he basically was just like, in the name of Jesus, like, you have no control here, like, you need to go. And he felt the pressure off his chest. He looked at the clock. And I had explained to him the 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. thing. He looked at the clock, and it had just turned 4 a.m. when the demon left. And so I think he just went back to sleep. He had a dream, and the dream was personal, so I won't share that. Stephen had just been struggling with some stuff that he hadn't shared with me yet, and basically while he had been struggling with these things, the demon had formed and come into our home. And so God had given him a dream to reveal something. And he had basically told Stephen, like, I have the demon right now. Like, he's chained up. But if you don't tell Grace this thing that you need to tell her, I'm unleashing him. And he's got full control over you. And so that really scared Stephen.
Yeah. Well, because, that sounds like such a scary thing to say and a scary thing to think about. But here's the thing. If you're choosing something that's other than the Lord and the light, the Lord has complete and full power over everything. Always. He is all and has, nothing can overtake him. Yeah. But if you are choosing to not walk with the Lord, then the Satan Lord cannot help. He cannot help you. Yeah. Like, he can always if you come to him, he can always get you out of those things. Yes. And there's such a thing as common grace. Yeah. I hope this is coming across as clear, but it says in scripture, and I need to find it, but that the Lord will give you over to the desires, of your
heart. Yeah.
If you, and so I wanted to clarify that sounded super spooky and super scary.
Well, and to clarify that more, something, when he finally told me a couple days later, he had come to our pastor with the situation and just been like, I need to tell Grace and I need advice. But when he came to me, it was a really hard back and forth. We argued for a long time. Even as I was arguing with Steven, it was so creepy. I almost felt like I was staring at the demon's face and not my own husband. And I was just having to kind of call some stuff out of him and even just pray in my head of like, this demon doesn't have control over my husband. Like, he needs to get out. But I also felt the Lord speak to me of, this is the time to give Steven grace, and he's going to heal if you forgive him. And so I had to pause, and it was really hard because I was like, you need to know I'm completely hurt right now. And like, what you did was not okay. And it's going to take a long time to heal from that. But I told him, I was like, we're not separating. We're working through this. We're going to get counseling, and I forgive you. And he hugged me, and it was weird. There was a change in the room, and he was like, I think the demon's gone. Like, he felt it come off his chest again. And I was a little bit skeptical about that because I was like, okay, the demon might be gone, but I was also thinking, don't use that as an excuse to say, oh, I'm healed all of a sudden, because I was like, we're working through this. Yeah. But then he clarified. He was like, God said, spiritual warfare is over. Now it's time to deal with the flesh. So basically, the spiritual stuff is gone for now, but like, Steven needs to deal with the actual not sinning part. Like, he needs to deal with fleshly desires. And so yeah, like, yeah, obviously the Lord protects us from those things. Obviously, he had a very clear hand in our situation. Even using the demon to like let Steven know, like, hey, you need to take care of this thing. Like, that's why this demon's here. But when we don't follow the Lord, when we don't repent of things, yeah, Satan has full reign over us. He gets to touch those parts of our weaknesses and use them to destroy us.
Which is why, like, in a roundabout way, we're talking about we love spooky season. We love watching fun, spooky things, and that's. But if you feel in your heart that there is, if you're experiencing a dream or something strange, if you're feeling something dark in your home and in your mind, then please don't frick around with that. That means you need to cut some things out of your life. That means you need to make some changes.
Or even just that Satan's maybe feeding you. We even talked about, we did intrusive thoughts. He could be feeding you intrusive thoughts. That's something that Steve and I have been dealing with all October, is just feeling that heavy presence in our home again. And it was like, okay, what are we dealing with right now? And in this sense, it's been like, we're working on our marriage. We've grown a ton. We've healed from the situation that we had with the demon. Yeah. And Satan's just, and you encourage this, Satan's probably pissed right now at us. And
yeah. I literally said that this morning.
He was so close to getting Steven. And it's like, now we've healed from it. Steven's been relying on the Lord. Steven's been working on all these things.
And you as well, that it's used this situation to like reveal stuff to you, and in your heart we're like, and that's what's so beautiful is like situations like this, and that's what's so hard. But when you allow yourself to not be like, oh, it's all fake, it's just spooky season, when you acknowledge the fact that things like this are real, that is when the enemy likes to attack and utilize those things. But it's also when we have nothing to fear. We have the power of Christ. Yeah. We have the Holy Spirit living inside of us. So we don't need to be afraid.
Well, then what do we have to fear when we're bringing it to the light, I know some people who have tried to expel demons from their home, and their voice would stop anytime they tried using God's name, because we know God has power over Satan. And sometimes all it takes is saying his name. And rebuking them. So yeah, I think it's good to acknowledge demons. I think because they are very present, and when you acknowledge them, when you talk to trusted friends about what you're dealing with, it might sound scary and it might give them chills, but that's because it's very real. But when you're bringing it to the light, there's also nothing to hide, and it brings healing. But there's also people who over spiritualize these things, and everything is demonic. Like people who are like, no Halloween anything, but then they still technically celebrate
Harry Potter is
Halloween.
Evil. Yeah.
Oh, you trigger. Yeah. There can be over spiritualization too, but I think it's good to acknowledge the darkness that can happen.
I was gonna say, so wrapping up that episode is basically to say, just be wary, have fun, enjoy spooky season, dive into some things that are hard and maybe a little scary, if that's what you need to do. Yeah. But never without the presence and the power of Christ.
Yes.
And
don't
never
seek demonic things
Oh
either.
my goodness. We can't leave this episode without telling people that Ouija boards are real and all those things are real, and that absolutely...
Or even just be careful who you bring into your home. Like, obviously, sinners come into our home. Like, everyone is welcome in our home. Literally everyone. But if you know someone who is very into Wiccan practices, is into talking to spirits, is into Ouija boards, I would just say have some discernment. I'm not even saying don't bring them into your home, just have discernment. Be careful with the conversations you are holding with them, because that can be dangerous too. You don't want to welcome those things into your home.
We're probably gonna pray together after this episode just to make sure that in talking about spooky things we didn't accidentally bring anything into the home.
yeah, so just be careful with that too.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, well, we hope you have a very safe Halloween.
A very fun Halloween.
A fun Halloween. Yeah, don't bring anything creepy into your home. I'm even careful with what Halloween decorations I bring into my home now.
Yeah.
It's just like, you never know.
You never know. I think that's smart.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening. Make sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Give us a good rating. And you can check us out on Instagram at UnveilingPod. But, next time we're getting into Enneagram. You're going to hear me cry for the first time on the podcast, I do believe.
It's a great one.
It was a good conversation, though, so I'm excited to release it. But yeah, we'll check you out next time.
Check us out next time.
Check us out next time, and we'll talk to you later.